Okay. Before we just wrap up a couple of thoughts, I wanted to show you, I get to travel quite a bit, and I run into some funny things. And so I wanted to share what I call unintentional, inappropriate test responses from children. So these are actual test responses that kids have written down before. Draw a picture of what you would like to look like in 100 years. Okay, that's called begin with the end in mind. Do not write your essay on this page. Your essay. Name 4 heavy metals and their symbols. Megadeth, Anthrax, Slayer, and Metallica. Good thing he got all 4. I had a terrific year in first grade. My teacher was Miss Colbert. She was very, 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 very mean. This is a picture of my teacher. It's just terrible. Igneous rock, sedimentary rock, pet rock. What is the strongest force on Earth? Love. And she marked it wrong. I would have given credit. Journal, tell how you know when to regroup. I don't want to tell you how. This is not acceptable, Caroline. In the space below, write any overall comments about this course or instructor. If I had 1 hour to live, I'd spend it in this class because it feels like an eternity. All right. Find X. Here it is. What are 3 things you want to do in the future? Get a girlfriend, kiss her, rule the world. I think that was Vladimir Putin there. All right, enough of that. Okay, so key learnings from today. There's been a lot of discussion. I've done a lot of these, and I'd say you guys are a really progressive nation. It's very exciting to see all the discussion and the dialogue and the debate today. There's differences of opinions on some things, but there's also some consensus on some things. I wrote down a few things that seem to stand out as things that everyone agrees with. One is that there are many aspects of our school system, not all of them, but many aspects of the school systems that need to change for the better. A second one is, in general, schools need to do more to bring out the unique talents and individuality of each child. I think that was consistent. The importance of finding unique gifts and talents, and that schools need to do a better job of individualizing to that end. A third that seemed to be very consistent was the idea of modeling, that modeling is key. The modeling of the adults in the school. They can't expect the kids to behave in ways that they don't. That stood out. And then another one is that we need to have shorter holidays. And then finally, this guy named Rousseau is really cool. Okay, I'm going to go home and I'm going to start reading Rousseau. You got me hooked, Martin. That's good. Just a couple of observations. I think that we can talk a lot, and there's a lot of theories. I remember going to one of these in Washington, D.C. It was a big forum, all-day forum, and they had people from all over the country and the United States there talking and talking and talking. And there was a lot of theory, and nothing happened. And I think that can be the case if we're not careful. You can talk so much and be so scared about trying something that you don't do anything because there's no perfect silver bullet. So my advice would be to listen to everything you've heard, but also move forward in bold ways and try things. And I think there are several different approaches to improving our schools and to individualizing better and to helping kids bring out unique talents. I think the 7 habits is one of them. I'd invite you to give it a try if you haven't. There are many here that have. I think you'll find in the 7 habits a framework and a set of tools that can be very helpful. It's not a prescribed curriculum. There's only one way to do things. These are principles. It's hard to argue against responsibility and vision and teamwork and collaboration and mutual benefit and renewal. These are principles and tools that can help any child develop a framework for thinking about things and to develop a standard for behavior. So we also talked today in the forum, which I wasn't part of because I don't speak Dutch, sorry, a lot about the perfect ideal school. I've seen a couple hundred ideal schools, and they all have something in common, which is they work on the roots. They have common paradigms. The purpose of the school is not just for academics, but it's to develop the whole child. They have basic principles they abide to, a common language. They have a culture that reinforces the vision they're trying to establish. So there's a lot of good schools out there that have done wonderful things. So I just encourage you and all of us to be careful about being so cautious that we don't move forward and to try some stuff. And I would invite you, we would love to help contribute to your success at Franklin Covey and CPS if we can, if that's the route you choose. A lot of people have asked me during the break about my father. I appreciate that. And my father, Dr. Covey, he was named a few years ago one of the 25 most influential Americans. He actually passed away about 2.5 years ago. He was 79. And this was unexpected. He had a bike accident. He was on a mountain bike. So here he is, 79, going down a steep hill, and his brakes went out. And he hit his head, and he was in the hospital for a few months, and he didn't recover from that. And he always had this dream of having his 80th birthday, and he used to do this exercise in big crowds. He'd say to everyone, okay, I want you all here to imagine your 80th birthday. Now, all of you are so young, no one's that old, right? But imagine your 80th birthday. You're sitting at the table, and around the table are the most important people of your life. It might be your spouse or your partner. It might be your children, some of your key work colleagues, some friends and neighbors, the most important people of your life. Now imagine that they have to state a tribute to you. What would you want them to say? What would you want your spouse to say about you? What would you want your colleague that you worked with for 30 years to say about you? And then he'd go on to say, live your life accordingly. Live your life as if you had the 80th birthday in front of you all the time. So he never made it to his 80th birthday. He was like 6 months short. So on his 80th birthday, we had a big celebration. And we all got together as family, and we gave that tribute to him, even though he wasn't there. Now, one thing, I'd like you just for a second to think about a person in your life that significantly impacted you. Maybe somebody that believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. It might be a teacher, it might be a coach, maybe a parent, uncle, aunt, family member. Okay, can everybody think about that just for a second? Okay, get that in your mind. Actually, what I'd like you to do for 30 seconds is tell your neighbor who that person was, okay? Think of the person who had the most impact upon you and perhaps believed in you and didn't believe in yourself. And just for 30 seconds, tell your neighbor who that person was. Go ahead. So, would anyone be willing to share one of the most influential people in your life? Anyone? Okay, this gentleman over here. You can speak in Dutch.
I can do this in English as well. Okay. That's fine. If that's okay. Should I stand up? Yeah, you want me to stand? So how long do I have?
30 seconds. You have 30 seconds.
the person that influenced me the most in my life is my cousin, who allowed me to think further than I could see. And this is me coming from a minority group in the Netherlands, so to say. So I was in there were a lot of obstacles, so to say. But here I was pretty smart, one of the smartest kids of my class, actually. And but I was still limited to my background, so to say, because the people that I had gathered around me, they weren't necessarily very stimulative or anything. And so whenever my parents and myself, of course, would go and visit my aunt and uncle, my cousin would be there. He's 10 years older than I am, by the way. And he would, because he didn't study or anything, but he had a lot of perspective, a lot of knowledge, so to say. So he really stimulated me to think further than I could see, and that, one of the quotes that he gave with me was, "Show me your friends, and I will show you who you are." And I think that is still applicable to this day, because now I surround myself with a different set of people. In fact, two of my best friends, we call each other, or we have a WhatsApp group, which is called the School of Athens, because we went back to the days where Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates gathered, and they tried to stimulate one another to think critically about their own ideas, but also to develop themselves, and in doing so, develop those around them. So I think those two things are not mutually exclusive. In developing others, I think one can develop themselves. I think that is applicable to anyone, and also to many teachers. So my cousin, thank you.
Can we hire you? Anyone else? One other. Anyone? Okay, I'm going to share mine real quick. So I had two people. One was a 7th grade speech teacher, Miss Muir. And I was in 7th grade. I hated it. I felt like I didn't fit in. I was struggling. And she took me under her wing, and she told me I could speak. And she taught me so much, and she made a huge difference in my life. And the next year, she got married, and I was jealous. Still remember. And then I had a high school football coach. And he started me when I was 15 as a young kid in the senior position. And the first half of that game, I did so bad that I thought for sure I'd get pulled forever. And he kept with me, and I played good the second half. And I feel like if he would have pulled me that first half and not believed in me, I would have had a terrible career in football. But I was able to play football in college. I think that was the start of it. So think about the person. We're going to just do a little shout out loud, okay? On the count of 3, we're going to 1, 2, 3. You're going to shout out the name of the person who influenced you. This is a toast, okay, to that person who influenced you. They're not here today, but they will feel it wherever they are. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Miss Muir. All right. Good job. Okay. So just in closing, I just say this. You've read the book, The Tipping Point, maybe, from Malcolm Gladwell. But it's the idea that if you can get to a certain mass, you can change things. So I believe that if we can get 10% of our schools being progressive and adopting these principles, I think we can really impact change. It doesn't take everybody. Just 10% can reach a tipping point where you can change a system. I want to tell you about this girl. I'm going to show you a short video. She comes from my hometown. Her name is Lindsay Sterling, and you might have heard of her. She's got 500 million hits on YouTube. So now when she performs in concert, she gets paid a lot of money. She's in her young 20s. When she was a high school student, she had anorexia and bulimia, and she had these major eating disorders, and she had low self-esteem. She didn't feel that good about herself. She didn't do well in school, but she could do two things. She could play the violin, and she could dance. And so she started doing both of these together. And she went on America's Got Talent, okay? And she did really well. She made it to like the two away from the top, okay? And then Simon, that mean guy from Australia, he said, "Oh, no, you're not that good. you can't play the piano, play the violin and dance at the same time. It doesn't sound very good. And so he knocked her out. And then after that, she said, a lot of people have told me along the way that my style and the music I do is unmarketable. But the only reason I'm successful is because I have stayed true to myself. So this young lady developed this, they call her the dancing leprechaun. She developed this great skill of dancing and playing the violin, and then she made this one single video on YouTube, big sensation, and then another one. Well, about a year ago, we went to her, Franklin Covey, and said, would you make a video with us? And she said, okay. It's now on YouTube. You can watch it, but I'm going to show it to you right now. But this video is about, I think it summarizes and captures everything we've talked about today. Okay? My father said this about leadership. One time I heard people giving definitions, and then he said, I think leadership is this. Leadership is communicating to another person their worth and potential so clearly they are inspired to see it in themselves. One more time. Leadership is communicating to another person their worth and potential so clearly they are inspired to see it in themselves. So it's just like the person that influenced you. That's leadership. As educators, leadership is communicating to these children their worth and potential so clearly they're inspired to see it in themselves. That's our job in the end. And however that manifests itself, you think of every child in that school. Is their worth and potential being communicated to them in a number of different ways? So this video is about change, about communicating worth and potential. It's about how our job is to find our voice, to find out what makes us passionate, what makes us tick, and then to help other people find their voice once we've found ours. I think most of us here, or many of us here, if not all of us, have found our voice. Maybe we lose it from time to time, but because you're here, because you're in a leadership position, you have found your voice to some degree. Now it's our responsibility to pass it on. Okay, so enjoy this short video. Lindsay Sterling. Hey, that only cost $100,000 to make. Anyhow, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate it. It's great to be here. I'm going home tomorrow night. I wish I could be here longer, but it's wonderful to be here, and I'm still pulling for your football team. Yeah. Thank you.